All right, so we have a nice big dent right across this hood here. It's pretty nasty. It's big. So we'll see what happens. I'll film a little bit how we're doing it. We're gonna set up an umbrella, keep the heat off of this thing. And it's pretty bad.
So, where do we start? What what area are you going to concentrate on? Are you going to glue pull? Are you going to push it? What do you do with this type of dent? Now, my son was with me. I didn't show him in any of the video, but he does this thing called geocaching. I don't know if any of your kids do that, but it's kind of like a treasure hunt through an app. Anyways, there was something close by at this job, and he wanted to go look for it. Literally, he was gone for 5 minutes. And I'm going to show you how I got 80% of this dent lifted out in 5 minutes or less. I didn't even actually time it yet, but it was not very long. You'll be very, very amazed. What took the longest was the crowns. I'll be honest with you, 2 hours and 35 minutes of crown and tapping, pushing down. That's always the hard part. Customers always say, hey, well, you know, I got most of the dent out for you, but it's just some small waves. Well, that's the part that takes the longest, as you guys know. And if you haven't learned your lesson enough on that, one day you will, because that really takes all your time. And this is the case for this repair. So let's get right into it. I think you guys are going to love this tutorial. It's not a very long tutorial, but it's a very beneficial tutorial. I'll show you a little bit of access about this and what techniques I use. So let's jump in. You are going to be one happy camper. Now I'm going to talk about crown zones, where to start on something like this. But let me give you an analogy real quick. That way it kind of helps you understand when you see a big dent like this, you'll go, oh yeah, what Mike says kind of makes sense. Now, if you watch this dent happen on video, which unfortunately I don't, okay, but if you watch it, maybe I'll do one like in a kick dent. But let's just say someone sat on this hood. That's what it looks like, okay? It looks like somebody either severely sat on this hood or stepped on it, okay? Now, the main impact is in the center. And that main impact was the first place that I got hit. It's actually the only place, but the force of it actually crumpled the outside. So it folded out, came outward on the edges as it was making an impact in the inside. And that's why you see crowns and folds, because that's the area where the pressure is being held, okay? If you try to glue pull the center, okay, without releasing those crowns on the outside first, you're going to volcano the dent. Okay, you're going to cause more work for yourself and just instantly doubled the challenge for yourself. Now, going back to the video part, you saw, let's say you watched somebody jumped on that hood with their butt. Their butt is causing the main impact in the center. It's causing the crumples, the metal to fold down and crumple on the outside. Now let's say you reverse that video. Now you see that person still on the hood, right? But the outside dent, the fold is starting to come back towards the center. The person's still on the car. You reverse them, okay? You're still watching the video and you reverse. What's last that comes off that car? What's last that comes back, that dent? That person's butt is starting to lift off at the end, correct? That means the center is starting to come up at the end. So that's why you want to correct, you really would like to start from the outside and picture that it's being reversed in video. And that way you'll have a nice smooth repair. Now let me show you the example. Now here comes the surprise. Now, as I was mentioning, I'm going to start on the left side, top left corner. Watch what I'm going to use. Yep, a suction cup. This is going to take 80% of the dent out in about 5 minutes. The last, I would say 20% took me 2.5 hours. Okay. Literally. Now you can see why I just told you the analogy. I'm proving it to you why it's so important to start from the outside. It's coming up very smoothly. If I tried to pull that in the front, in the center, I'm still going to have crowns and possibly jeopardize stretching the metal in the center and then have a weeble wobble oil can dent. I'm going from the outside. Now pop off this suction cup. Now hold on your suction cup real strong, or use one of those industrial suction cups that like the windshield guys have. There's a stainless steel one that they make, or a much bigger one. You can use like an umbrella suction cup, one of those big ones. This I just happened to have in my car. I said, heck, let's just see what happens. I put the camera on, and voila, it was starting to come out. I think it actually even surprised me. I thought the metal was going to be a lot more locked up, and I was going to have to get the K-bar with the super tabs and really trying to pull it. But it ended up being pretty good. Now, it didn't have a lot of tight braces underneath, and you can see if I had a better suction cup, I wouldn't be dropping it all over the hood. Luckily, I didn't scratch it. But here, the next couple of pulls, you're going to see it really start to pop up. Now I'm going right underneath where the crowns are, so I don't have to, if I go too far away from the crowns, I'm going to have a severe crown left behind. And I still have crowns left, which you'll see, but you want to get as close as you can underneath the crown or right next to the crown, so you don't have a lot of work to do when you're, or not as much work to do when you are doing this. So you can see, look how fast that is. That might be less than 5 minutes. Now the rest of it, I had to do a lot of tapping down. You can see a lot of crowns going back and forth on here. I mean, a lot of crowns all the way around on there. And I'll let you guys take a closer look and see what's going on. Without having to glue pull or nothing. I even got my glue pull already.
Take a look. A lot of it's there's still some crowns. See, that's the hard part right there. So we'll tap those down. But what's amazing is that a lot of that came out with the suction cup, but placing in the right areas. So I didn't just go straight in the center and lock it. I worked it like a dent from the outside, brought it back in, and you can see some of those crowns that we got to work and those lows. Probably have to tool some of the rest of that out.
In case you guys are wondering, I'm using the new NeoFlex line board. Very, very cool board. You can see that it's actually creating shade, and I can still see exactly what I'm doing. And I could have made the camera even more brighter, and it is brighter in person, but I just happened to put this up, and it just worked perfect and flawlessly for this type of repair. Now I am using an R4. I'm actually going quite fast. I'm not speeding it up. This is just me in real time. If you guys are not very familiar with tapping down, do not tap down like this. It's because I can actually see how the metal reacts very fast, and with the metal reacting very fast, I move my board a lot faster.
That you'll notice.
Excuse me, my tap down a lot faster. A lot of guys watch me when they're learning, and they try to mimic what I'm doing. You've got to slow down and watch the line go down as you tap. I instantly can see it because I'm so used to it, and I have my hand, and it's not necessarily how I teach my students to tap down. I want your hand to be in your palm, your side of your palm to be level on the panel, so you have very good stability as you're tapping down. You're not slipping. Now the great thing about the R4, which I'm using, is that it doesn't slip as you're tapping down. You can see I'm actually just trying to tap down all these crowns, and this is what I had to do in about 20 places, okay, for 2.5 hours. Just tap, tap, tap. Now I'm using an R4 because I don't want to use too sharp of a tool, because I'll create micro lows, as you guys have been seeing, and I have a lot of video coming up about this. Matter of fact, I'll probably use some of this shot in there because I'm still working on the last bits of it. The R4 is great for especially for these circumstances, these types of crowns. And if you ever get a chance to use a line board like this, or just a NeoFlex board, which we're going to have in the fog, I'm going to have in the fog and the hybrid and all the good stuff. We're going to get rid of the ghost because this works much better. It's more durable as well. Now with crowns, the more you move your board, the more you're going to see. I love the line board for crowns. Crowns show up like a sore thumb. You can see that the lines are super skinny. They're easy to read. I actually move my line board out thin to make the lines thinner, so I can identify what's skinnier on the reflection. As I move the board, I will see more and more crowns that you don't normally see just without a board. The R4 is my favorite by far for tapping down crowns. You can see that I'm not making much more lows. Okay, I'm not creating more work for myself. And I swear I'm not speeding this up. This is how I work in real time. I don't think I've ever shown myself working in real time when I'm trying to actually get this going super fast. Like I said, there's about 30 different areas that I had to do this tapping down, working and tapping down. At first, it's kind of like doing hail. When you're doing a panel underneath, you're not going to grab, you're not going to push and then tap down and push and tap down. You're going to grab one tool that you can get as much stuff out as you can. In this case, I'm actually tapping down every crown in my sight that I can see, and I take in sections and I go by sections and do that. I will not tool it until I get most of the crowns down on the whole hood. So that's something that you might want to consider doing as you repair when you got a big area to do. Take your time, but actually save time by doing as much as you can with one tool. Now, luckily for me, there are two major big holes on both sides of the hood. Now, I did not drill that. I know it looks kind of mauled up, but the angles of my tools I was trying to get, had to bend the hole a little bit. And if you ever do that, you can actually just put some rust proofing on it, and it should be fine. Bend it back, bend the hole back, and put some rust proofing on it. And if you don't have that, use some silicone. That should help save that too as well. In this case, I was using a soft tip tool to actually push out the main meat of the dents and the areas that obviously I couldn't blend out and with the crowns. And I'm not going to go over every little bit that I was doing with this dent, because there's plenty of tutorials on how to fix dents with the line board and whatnot, but I'm just showing you how I attacked this type of dent and what was involved in this type of repair. But let's get into a little bit more. I'll show you some different tools I was using to finish and talk about a little bit other kind of a trouble area that you might run into when you're doing something like this on not only just this hood, but other hoods with some backing behind it. So let me explain more about that. What I mean is that there's some waffle, like really thick cardboard like backing behind there. When you're pushing against it, you feel like it's double walled. But if you really push on and get a sharper tool or a blade tip tool, you'll hear it almost like crack, and it's kind of scary because you don't know if you just busted something or you broke paint or anything like that. But trust me, you have to push really hard through it, and then you'll start actually pushing through it. And that's what I'm doing right now. You'll see that I'm really trying to force myself, and if I didn't have that experience, I might have thought, oh heck, I gotta glue pull it because it's double walled. So really give a good push before you pick up that glue pull, because you might be able to just tool the rest of it out. Now, you probably didn't notice, but just in case you guys who do notice about the Neo Flex line board, this is my first prototype one, and it's so good I continue to use it. I have the newest ones that have been sent out already and made and sent to the customers. But look at the line board reflection itself on not the reflection, but the board itself, and you'll see little splotches in the line pattern. You will not have that in yours. It's just because when we were printing them, they just happen to be splotchy on this batch. But it's all solid, so you're not going to see that splotchiness, and obviously it doesn't even affect the reflection. As you can see, you can't even tell in the reflection. But going back to this repair, I took a soft tip tool and I got most of the meat out. Okay, so I worked that black line that you see, that I'm forcing you to see, and I'm really pushing hard though, is again against that backing behind the panel. If you don't put a lot of force in certain cases, you're never going to know that you're actually pushing on it. So you need to make sure. Sometimes you'll think that you're on a double panel, which I already mentioned. But in this case, if you look real close and you notice right here on the outside that there's a little bit of a pinch there, that's holding some pressure there. Dang phone. It's holding some pressure right there. And what happens if you don't release the pressure, you're going to be fighting this low. Okay, now, based on my experience, I'm still kind of forcing it. But if you feel like it's kind of like really springy, you want to release those pinches right there on the outside. And as always, guys, keep those boards moved in different positions, whether it be your light or your reflection. You're going to see things that you don't normally notice from one angle compared to another. So that's always a good habit. Now, as far as me pushing, I'm always looking for the fattest part of the line. Again, when I go to do one thing, I'm going to try to look for that one thing constantly, so I don't have to keep busting out my tap down and then going and push and then busting out the tap down and push. I want to try to get as much done in one shot. In other words, go for all the lows or go for all the highs. You'll save a lot of time if you have a habit of doing that. Now, right now, what I'm doing is I'm using a sharper tip, kind of a blade tip tool. I should be able to show that to you sometime soon. But I'm actually, you can't really, I should have recorded this sound, but it has a real good crackle to it, like I mentioned before. It's just like as I'm pushing through that backing. And then also, since that pinch I was telling you about was kind of shall I say, bothering me. So what I ended up doing is tapping that little pinch mark down, and that will help release the low. And there's two types of tap downs I use mainly all the time, an R4 or a sharper tap down. Now, when I go to tap down, I always try to use the R4 first to see how well the metal's going to react. I never really try to use a sharp tip right off the bat, especially if I get something like this, because it could make little micro lows. So that way I prevent myself from doing extra cleanup work. That's something that you want to definitely consider that. And that's how you stay a lot cleaner. Use the R4 a lot. You're going to love it. If you haven't used it already, I talk about it in almost every video. You see it pretty often. And if that doesn't work, switch to the sharper tip, which you see right here. Because of the backing behind it, it was really more solid. So I needed to get more of an accurate, more precise tap down, and that's why I'm using that black, sharper pinpoint tap down. Now, if you really want to see a lot more detail as well, you should be turning your board outward really thin. The more thinner your lines are, the more detail you're going to see, because lows and highs like to hide in between the line. So not in between it, but yeah, actually behind the line. So if your line is thicker than the area than the highs and lows, it's like putting a table in front of a skinny guy, okay, and are standing up. And if it's standing up, the table's wider than the skinny guy, then you're not going to see the skinny guy behind him. So a skinny guy to me is like a pinch, or it could be a low. So in order to identify that skinny guy, you've got to start moving that table and making sure you've got to make that table skinnier than the guy. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but all my crazy analogies that I try to get you guys to help understand. In other words, just tilt that board outward to see more detail. And the more detail you see, the cleaner your repair is going to be. Yes, it does take time to pick out and tap down and yada yada, but you're going to really understand how much you're missing when you move that board. Move it outward, tilt the lines outward, make your lines super thin as best you can. And trust me, you'll get better at doing it. It'll become a habit. You won't even think about it. It just starts doing it for you, and you'll see a lot more detail. Trust me. Now I'm going for the little micro lows, just trying to pinch out everything. I'm not going to go through the whole dang darn thing. I have tons of videos on Dent Trainer about this, and you should, obviously if you've been watching this video, you should have watched at least 10 or 15 more videos between my videos and John Hiley's. Even though John Hiley's demonstrates on a different reflection, the techniques are pretty much the same. You always got to move that board no matter what reflection you're using. And you can tell how thin these lines are actually getting. You see all the micro little lows and the little pinch marks and the pushes and that stuff like that. That's when you know you're getting super detailed. I can't really tell you how thin these are, but because I don't have nothing to give you a reference of. But you can see I'm actually just really trying to actually push against that area with this blade tip tool that I'm actually going to show you. Watch this blade tip tool that I'm going to show you. It's by Dent Gear, okay, and it's really pushing all that little micro stuff. Now you want the tip, not the tool itself. The tip, the part that's making contact, that part is going to be essential for you to actually pick out those little micro lows. That's what I'm trying to do. Again, I'm not going to show you the whole thing about everything. I mean, I got this out pretty dang close and left it pretty much like this. You can sand it too if you don't like, if it gets a little distorted for you. I didn't sand it though. I didn't have to. It looked pretty good as it was. Take a look. I pan the camera back and forth on this shot here, and basically that's how I did it. I tapped down all the crowns and pushed out all the lows, and I hope you guys thought this was interesting, and I hope you guys got something out of it. And I appreciate you guys subscribing and being a member, and if you're not a member, you should be a member. Actually, you're already a member if you're watching this. See you guys.